Hello everyone and welcome back to the Plutonium Show. Excuse the scarf situation, I'm trying something out. I'm trying not to be very vanilla with this outfit because it's too hot to wear anything else and I don't like looking vanilla. So trying to inject some color. Don't know if it's going to translate well on camera because oftentimes what happens is I'll, get dressed for a video, think I look fine in the mirror, and then once I'm done filming and I'm editing, I just go, I look like a piece of But such is the life of a content creator, I suppose. The agenda for today. First, there is something I really want to get off my chest surrounding the Epstein file debacle that has entirely unraveled over the past week. I don't want to linger too much on it. Everyone and their dog and their cat and their bird and their fish are talking about it. I understand that. But there's just something that's been weighing down on me this whole week, and not this week, the whole of last week, and I couldn't wait until this episode to, first of all, let it out and share it with you. But second of all, and more importantly, see what you think. Do you feel the same way, or do you have an alternate view of things, an opposing view of things, or something that could help open my eyes up and understand what on earth is going on? Secondly, we have what is apparently breaking news, but it's all smoke and mirrors. That's the whole theme of this episode, by the way, smoke and mirrors. There's been a secret, that's why we know about it, Sussex Reconciliation Summit, which happened last week, but was somehow only released yesterday, on Sunday, I believe. And I have a sneaking suspicion, I know exactly why it was released yesterday, but we'll get to that when we get to the topic eventually. So with the agenda out of the way, let's get ready to grumble. There's a lot to be said about the whole Epstein list debacle, and I really want to limit it to what I want to talk about today, because I could really go off on many tangents. I mean, I have notes here. I really don't want to rely on them too much because I like the natural flow of conversation on this show. But all this to say, if I don't address a few things, then you'll know it's a deliberate attempt to just narrow the conversation. In a nutshell, we know that, especially since this new administration with Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, the public, and not just Americans, I really want to let Americans know that as someone who lived in Australia, did a big move this year to Europe, everyone's interested. Epstein is not just an American topic. And yes, you, the American people, are the ones who are owed openness and transparency. The rest of us, we're watching. We've got a keen eye. Also, this is not about politics. This is an apolitical channel. So it's no secret that the powers that be, whether it's the government, whether it's the World Economic Forum, these types, whether it's the deep state, whatever you want to call it, they always want to dictate what we can believe and what we can talk about. It's getting better now, but I remember, I'm sure all of you do too, that horrific era between 2020, 2022, the whole cancellation, misinformation, disinformation era, where it was just a hive mind. And if you said something, then you're going to get canceled or demonetized. Thankfully, that's behind us. For most of this year, we've had Attorney General Pam Bondi not just teasing, but literally giving interviews about how she has either the Epstein file or the list. In her defense, if you watch the clip where she said she had it on her table, it's unclear exactly what she meant. They asked about the list. She said she's got it on her desk, but then she carries on and says the MLK file and some other file as well. So she may have meant Epstein file or files. Just giving her the benefit of the doubt. I don't know anything about her, by the way. This is a new individual to me. But I've watched all these various clips, and she's given many interviews where she's been teasing. It's highly out of character, actually, for any attorney. You know, if I were working on a case, I wouldn't be commenting on an active case. I've always said this. I said it about the Blake Lively case. I said, if these lawyers continue to talk to the press, it will bite them in the behind, and it did. It certainly did, especially with Justin Baldoni's lawyer. I said it with Johnny Depp's lawyer, Adam Waldman, back in the day. It's best not to say anything when something is open and ongoing. So it's been strange that Pam Bondi has been very vocal about apparently an open investigation. Yes, they want a more transparent administration, and I guess that was a show of how transparent they're meant to be. But there's a fine line, and I'm not pretending, look, I'm in comparison to these people, I'm a kid, you know, I'm not pretending to know better than anyone here. I'm just voicing my instincts as I sit down and listen to these interviews. I just think it's a little bit, you know, there's a fine line between being open and between being, what's the word? Almost exhibitionist, you know, just attracting or courting attention. So we went from that. We went from what's now called Bindergate, which I remember cringing over when this happened. The influencers, or content creators, as I like to call people, I hate the word influencer, who came out of the White House with the binders, you know, showing them off. We now have a backstory, by the way. These people had no idea that they were going to be given these files, or this file. Nothing in that file was new information, and they were told by Pam Bondi that there was nothing that was new information. And so there is a backstory there. The photos, I suppose, gave us, the rest of us, a very strange, misleading, I should say, message of, oh, wow, look, there's some new explosive details in these files. When no, absolutely nothing there. The story that these content creators were meant to break, and I think they did break, as per Pam Bondi's instructions, was to say, we're not being given information. The FBI is not being cooperative. This is all they've given me in the White House, and we want more. We know there's more. We demand more. In fact, Pam Bondi contacted the FBI and spoke about just that. But then why, if you don't know what information there is, if you don't know whether there is a client list or not, if you do believe things are being suppressed, then why this charade? Why this display of, you know, dangling it in front of, I suppose, the American people's noses? We've got something. No, not yet. Just hold on. No, not yet. Oh, look at these influencers with their binders. We told you we have something. And then somehow now, as of last week, the FBI releases a memo. And in this memo, they state that they have conducted an exhaustive review of investigative holdings relating to Jeffrey Epstein. And they go on to detail how extensive this review was. They claim that the files included a large volume of images of Epstein, images and videos of victims who are either minors or appear to be minors, and over 10,000 downloaded videos of CP. Much of the material is subject to court-ordered sealing. Only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial, as the seal served only to protect victims and did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. Through this review, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of those materials and will not permit the release of CP. But here's the more important part. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. The charges against Epstein, which were made when he was arrested 6 years ago now, on July 8, 2019, actually corroborate what the FBI are saying in this memo. Meaning, if you actually look at the allegations against him, which I will put up on the screen for you, you can clearly see that Jeffrey Epstein was accused of sex trafficking minors and conspiracy to do so to himself. There were no third parties. There were no other alleged so-called clients. Now, that's not to say that they don't exist. A lot of people believe, for instance, based on photographic evidence, that Prince Andrew is at least one of those to whom these minors were trafficked. Virginia Giuffre has alleged there were others, one of them who has since been exonerated being attorney Alan Dershowitz. Alan Dershowitz himself has clarified that there is no client list. He claims that he has seen these so-called names, and they're in the form of allegations coming from the likes of Virginia Giuffre. So she's named a few men, accusing them of participating, and these records have been redacted. So that could be true. By the way, it could be that there is no client list. But then why that performance? Why that performance only to then tell us there's nothing? And the most telling part that made my spidey senses tingle, really stand up, was President Trump's over-the-top reaction to a very simple and very much expected question from a reporter during last week's press call.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
The president doth protest too much comes to mind. I mean, I really felt bad for that reporter. They were made to feel that they were completely out of line and potentially even stupid for asking what we have all been wondering. This memo and this entire update of there being no list was fresh news when this reporter asked the question. It just happened. Now, we got an explanation from Pam Bondi that there was no list. It wasn't really an explanation, rather than as much as it was a confirmation of what the FBI said.
I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK files as well.
What I want to voice here, now that we've got somewhat of a picture, is, does the government really think that we're sheep to be herded, that we have no minds of our own, and that you can just give us one narrative at one end of the spectrum for months and months and months, if not years? Let's not pretend that the whole Epstein files and client list hasn't been going on for years, because it has, only to suddenly expect us to drop it. Oh, it's over, it's finished, simply because they told us so? Are we not allowed to, especially you Americans with your First Amendment reporters, are you not allowed to ask the questions that the people themselves are having in their minds? It just seemed incredibly off-putting. I don't have a better word to witness that reaction in that press conference. It's the ultimate confirmation that the government really still believes, the powers that be, I should say, really still believe that we, the public, are just sheep to be herded. You think about this when I tell you to, and you stop thinking about it when we tell you to. The truth, or the fact of the matter is, we don't know the truth. Potentially the FBI and the investigators may not even know the full truth. The truth, for all we know, died with Epstein, which is what makes his death all the more, or I should say the circumstances surrounding his death, all the more a point of contention for everyone. There's the whole footage debacle. Was it even his prison cell or jail cell? And the whole that minute before midnight, that daily is apparently skipped. And that's explained away like it's nothing. Like, oh yeah, that happens every night. I mean, sure, security footage, especially outdated ones, security systems can be incredibly dumb in that way. Granted. But it's not just an explanation. I mean, when you say that, you're just going to open up another door for people to say, well, clearly, if you know that this is a programmed error, something could have taken place in that 1 minute window. because they knew that it wasn't going to be filmed. I don't want to get into conspiracy theory territory because that's not the point of my discussion here. What I would like to hear from all of you is, do you feel the same way? Do you feel as though we're still being dictated to? We're still being shut down and told, you can't speak about this. Brand new, fresh news on a very topical case. And we're just shut down. It just left a horrible taste in my mouth. This is so typical, though, of the powers that be. This is, I feel like I always bring up history and ancient regimes because the fact of the matter is human behavior, time may pass, technology may change, but humans always stay the same. Throughout history, the masses were not allowed to question. The masses were not allowed to educate themselves at one point. The masses were not allowed to read because with reading comes, with knowledge comes power. And the masses, once they learn what's up and what's down, almost always revolt. Not saying that this is going to lead to a revolution. But when things like this happen to me as a young person living on this planet, all it serves to do is open up my eyes more and more. And while I'm no anarchist, the little anarchist in me, as I mentioned possibly last week or when we talked about the Jeff Bezos wedding, the little revolutionary starts brandishing her fist. So I suppose the question for you is, was this a cover-up? Is there more information? Or is it simply a matter of Pam Bondi and others flexing, overperforming, overpromising, overselling? But then the reality is there was really nothing to sell. Well, nothing to sell in terms of on the scale of what they were alleging. Let me know. Speaking of smoke and mirrors, I'd like to very quickly thank the partner for this podcast, Ground News, offering every one of you a 40% off discount on a Vantage plan, which gives you access to their platform where you can look up the news and it gives you a behind the scene look into what the political agenda of these publications is. Whether they're right-leaning, center, left, whatever the case may be, so that you can read their stories with that knowledge in the back of your mind and make up your own mind as to whether you find their angle credible. So if you're interested, the discount link is in the description box below. Don't hesitate to get it. Once again, thank you, Ground News. Basically, my personal search engine. All right, the Secret Summit making front page news, as if we haven't heard this tired tale of reconciliation. You can see here the Mail on Sunday. It's even dwarfed Catherine's appearance at Wimbledon. World exclusive. It's the first step towards reconciliation, insider tells Mail on Sunday, as key aides to King and Duke meet for talks near Royal Palace. And ironically, again, revealed the secret Harry Peace Summit. The secret, while it is splashed on front page news. The people who were involved in this reconciliation are Meredith Maines, who represented Harry, because they now have a chief of staff and a whole hierarchy to emulate the royal family that they left for some reason. But she's the chief communications officer and head of his household. What does that even mean? Head of his household in Montecito? So what? Head of mommy, daddy, wife, mommy, wife, and kids? It's embarrassing. It's actually embarrassing how badly they're trying to replicate the royal family. She met Tobin Andre, the King's communications secretary, at the Royal Overseas League, ROSL, which is right pretty much right next to Clarence House, the monarch's London residence. Also present was Liam Maguire, who runs the Sussex's PR team in the UK. Very strange assortment of individuals for the healing of a personal rift. You're sending professionals, people who are paid, doing their job to represent you, for a family reconciliation. So right off the bat, this smells iffy. And on that point, if this was a secret meeting, how do we know? How does the Daily Mail know that this was about reconciliation? And not to mention the photos, but we'll get to that. I want to start off with this woman, Miss Maines. I don't think anything she's involved in is good news, because she's apparently the woman who was not only behind Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview this year, where he literally said, there are people within the palace who want me dead. They want to see history repeat itself. My father is standing in the way. I want him to step aside and let me get my security. Stop interfering. Basically alleging his family are the only thing in the way between his and his family's safety. So she's responsible for that. She's apparently also responsible for With Love, Meghan and As Ever, which have both been disasters. So you know that whatever this woman's credentials are, whatever her CV says, normally I like to look at people's CVs and talk about them. In this instance, her work for the Sussexes so far speaks for itself. And of course, as I said, she was photographed leaving or getting into a taxi. And they were photographed out here on the patio, which they were sitting in for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes before going back to resume their talks. I don't know if the king's aides were in on this. Based on this photo, they seem to look taken off guard by this photographer who was clearly called. People are not waiting outside these places just in case a secret summit happens. This was absolutely planned. By whom? I don't know. But based on the photo, it seems that Meredith is the only one who doesn't seem bothered. In other news, apparently Prince William approves of this summit. Now, this headline is a bit more of clickbait by the Daily Mail. Because while that's what it says in the title, that this meeting would never have happened without William's support and understanding, if you actually read the body of the article, it paints a very different picture. It says, William has undoubtedly been furious at the way the Sussexes have behaved and regard Harry's behavior as treason. Ideally, the Sussexes might like to drive a wedge between the king and the heir to the throne, but they won't succeed. Of course they won't. And according to royal author Phil Dampier, the king is more anxious to patch things up than William, who he believes will never be close to his brother again. I don't think William will feel he has missed out on these talks, as he is not in a frame of mind at the moment to make it up with Harry, and Catherine is certainly not interested in having a relationship with Meghan. Mr. Dampier continued that he has grave doubts that William will ever forgive his brother, and this will confirm his worst fears that Harry and Meghan are trying to manipulate the situation to their own end. So you see how the title says one thing, making you think William is very much pro this reconciliation, this first step towards reconciliation. But then, according to this royal expert, William's not having any of it. We don't know what's true. I don't know why these royal experts come out and say things confidently. Maybe the whole notion that the palace does leak information is true, and they also have their trusted sources, trusted messengers as well. I mean, they are a 1,000+ year-old institution. Of course, they have their own ways of doing things. But is it any surprise? I mean, color us shocked, right? I would never talk to Harry again if he were my brother. His wife literally accused my wife, this sounds weird, but I'm William here. His wife literally accused William's wife of being a racist. Do we all remember Endgame, that accidental translation error? How could you forgive that? Especially when Catherine was going through it. Never mind, where is Kate? That whole debacle. too much has happened. Too much has happened. Normally, I would be a huge proponent of family reconciling if it's coming from a genuine place, and if it's something that maybe was done once. You know, that whole notion of that whole saying, fool me once, shame on me, but fool me twice. There are only so many second chances you can give someone, even if they're a family member. I'm sorry, some people may not like to hear that, but many family members take advantage of the blood relation. They take you for granted and they treat you like a POS because they think, well, I'm family. You'll always forgive me. If there's a religious angle, there's that pressure as well. What I want to say about the reconciliation thing is, if family members want to patch things up, fine. That's absolutely up to them to do so. However, do it in private. Don't take photos and leak things and splash things on front news and expect us, the public, not to chime in. There is a lot of discourse about this is none of our business. Stop talking about this. This is a family thing. Well, absolutely, I agree. Then stop making it our business. Stop putting it on the front page. If we had no idea that this meeting happened, and we know that the palace can orchestrate things secretly. We've never once seen Catherine go in and out of hospital when she was going through treatment. We know it's doable. I don't even think we've ever seen her family members visit her. Things can be done in secret, and they are entitled to their privacy. We're not the ones butting in. They're the ones, and when I say they, it's Meghan, Harry, but I don't know who's behind this leak. The palace as well, with these two aides meeting up in public with Meredith. We're going to talk about it if it makes it to the public. And I really do wonder what their angle was, because then we hear that the Sussexes are vehemently, I had a voice crack there, denying being behind this leak. The leak has jeopardized a fragile peace operation, creating further suspicion and distrust on both sides and potentially sending them back to square one. Sources close to Prince Harry insisted that the Sussexes were not responsible. Buckingham Palace declined to comment. So by denying that they're not responsible, I suppose Meghan and Harry are saying that the palace did this, which very much falls in line with their entire MO. If you tuned into their Netflix reality show, that was their whole story. That the reason Megxit happened, the reason there was such a rift between them, was because Harry in particular was complaining about how his father was just a leaking tap. And he'd leak everything, things that he only told him in confidence in a written email. Well, of course, it's a written email. Is there any other kind? I suppose you can send voice memos. Stop and focus. He accused his father of leaking things. He accused his brother of leaking things. He and Meghan have consistently alleged, that the palace has leaked and briefed against them as a couple. Here's my take on this. First of all, the notion of this being a reconciliation meeting is completely speculation, in my opinion, unless someone from either side leaked the information. Based on past behavior, Meghan and Harry are actually the leaking taps, not the palace. That's not to say they don't have their people and their wily ways of dealing with the media. But Meghan and Harry have a demonstrable track record of leaking information, especially when it comes to these notions of, reconciliation, because to them, that's how they can be royal adjacent. Their sheen of royalty has completely faded. It is gone. And to me, the easiest way that they think they can repaint themselves in that glorious sheen is to, drip feed or splash, rather, stories about reconciliation. This has been going on since Megxit. So I don't know. Obviously, no one knows who's behind this leak. I'd be really interested in finding out who you think is behind it. But more importantly, I've seen comments under these articles of citizens of the United Kingdom claiming that they will cease to support the monarchy if Prince Harry and Meghan are publicly allowed back into the royal fold. So if they're on the balcony, if they're in carriages, trooping the color, state dinners like nothing happened. And as a citizen of the Commonwealth myself, I tend to agree. Because that is such a slap in the face, especially to the people of the UK. After all the accusations of racism, after all the accusations that you all want them dead, that's why they need security, right? That's why they need IPP status, which they haven't publicly claimed. But that's why they need armed security. Only in the UK. They can go to Nigeria, they can go to Colombia, that's fine. With their own security detail, that's enough. But when it comes to the United Kingdom, they have deemed you as the most dangerous to them. So of course, the citizens, the subjects of this monarchy would not be too happy if these two liars were allowed back, welcomed back like nothing happened. It would be such a slap in the face. That's just my opinion. Welcoming your opinions, of course, in the comment section below. All right, finally moving on to your comments from last week. Really looking forward to your comments from this week now that we can discuss next week. First comment is from last week's podcast. It's from Life is But a Dream. I love your legal analysis. Thank you very much. As someone who has served on a petit and on a grand jury, I can say that jurors don't always get it right. The petit jury was a murder case. By the way, I don't know if you guys are meant to say petite, but that's the way I read it in French, if there's no E at the end. The petit jury was a murder case where we ended up hung because a bus driver wouldn't follow the rule of considering only the evidence provided. He kept bringing up culture, family connections, language, and other non-essential things and refused to simply keep the evidence. It was highly frustrating. Like you, I cannot understand the Diddy jury absolving him of some of these charges. To an outsider, it did seem that there could be no reasonable doubt. However, we didn't hear every part of the evidence. I can only surmise that the jury did the best it could with what it had. Or someone was very persuasive. Thank you so much for your insight. I picked this comment because it's very fascinating to me as someone who, I feel like there's something in my eye and I really hope there isn't. Someone who will never serve on a jury because lawyers are pretty much excluded from serving on a jury. It's always very interesting for me to hear insight from actual jurors and hearing confirmation that yes, it doesn't matter how you vet members of the jury. We're human. As I said last week, we cannot erase our biases. We can try. We can really wrangle them and put them in the back and focus on the jury instructions and the law and follow the instructions, basically. Make a decision based on the law and the facts without our biases. But you can say that all you want to a jury. At the end of the day, you can't guarantee that that's going to happen. But I also really like how very measured and balanced and fair this comment was, because yes, it was frustrating. Yes, to us outsiders, it seemed as though the jury got it wrong. But at the end of the day, we weren't there in the courtroom day in and day out for, what was it, 8 weeks? Listening to and watching the evidence that we will never see, videos of the freak-offs that we will never see. And so perhaps they had something that we just will never know simply by virtue of being there that led them to have reasonable doubt. So thank you so much, Life is But a Dream, for your comment. Next comment we have is from the silenced video I made on NDAs last week. Sue Armette says she's been bleeding for 8 years about not being allowed a voice, but she's quick to silence staff that she terrorized. The hypocrisy. I mean, she's called the Duchess of Hypocrisy for a reason, isn't she? Rules for thee and not for me. Typical narcissistic pattern of behavior. And finally, we have from the royal legacy, NDAs were meant to protect trade secrets, not royal tantrums. Spot on. It's what I said. Granted, yes, with the royal family, you have that extra, I hate the word layer because of Meghan, but it's quite apropos here. An extra layer of secrecy required to maintain their privacy because it's a very unique business. It's a personal business, really. It's the business are individual people. And so I understand that NDAs might veer into that privacy aspect more, but they should never protect royal tantrums or wrongdoing. Bullying individuals to the point of tears, to the point of quitting. Harry admitted in Spare, staff members are slumped over their desks, crying, like it's normal. Like that's what do you expect? It's a workplace. Aren't you slumped over your desk crying? I know as soon as I turn off this camera, I'm going to slump over my desk crying. It's run of the mill, people. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's all we have time for today. Unfortunately, it's a lot to squeeze into the one video, so there are things that there are probably going to be gaps that I would welcome you all to fill in the comment section. Do let me know what you think so we can share and discuss next week. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.